we'll cover a few things today. We'll do Shivam and I will do intros. Um, I'll very quickly walk you through at least the sales process that I follow, right? There's no right or wrong. There's a bunch of submitted questions. We'll try and go through them very quickly. There are a few people who had sent just a verbal sales pitch. We'll try and go through those quickly. Um, there are 3 or 4 sales decks that we have. We'll try and do those, and then we'll talk about next steps. That's broadly the agenda for today. Um, Obviously, we are on chat, and so if you have any other questions, just let me know, and we'll address them as they come. Okay. I'm going to stop now sharing because I want to see people. Uh, Otherwise, it gets too boring. So
Yeah,
again,
feel free
if
to
you can,
join.
if you
Video.
can, come on camera. If you can't, that's fine. It's not a requirement. I know it's late in India. Okay, Shivam, you want to get started with intros?
Yeah, sure thing. Nice to see everyone. My name is Shivam Desai, based here in New York, Jersey City, right across the river. I worked at growth stage startups for 6, 7 years in New York. I ran partnerships, capital markets, so I have pretty good experience selling into the largest enterprises in the U.S. Companies like Tesla, Walmart, Progressive Insurance, doing deals anywhere from $5 to $50 million. I then spent a year in China through a scholarship called Schwartzman Scholars. And now I'm building a cross-border company between the US and India, essentially building a marketplace and productizing India IT services network to deliver AI engineering teams and mini GCCs of 20 to 50 or so people. And so I've really gotten into this US India world. And so many founders from the India side always reach out thinking I'm an investor and asking me how I can support their GTM or investment. And I said, I'm not an investor. And then Herman and I have been close for a bit of time, and he said this is something that I've been working on for years now, and maybe we can bring our minds together to see how we can support this corridor. Uh, Herman, do you want me to introduce you or?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so Arman and I connected about a year ago, came to one of my events in New York. And yeah, he's had a prolific career, was founder and investor, started his career as an engineer, founded a couple of startups, and then ran product at Walmart, where he has got a few patents on knowledge graphic. He ran a real estate startup, was a general manager there, growing revenue 15, 16 times and most recently spent 2 years at Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator, where he coached 30 startups a year, coached, invested into, and so I think is a brilliant mind on GTM sales motions, which is the scope of this call. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to our first one, and I'm sure this becomes recurring too.
Awesome. Thanks, Shivam. What I want, and the aim today of the call is to go through the sales deck, or go through some of the sales decks that we have. What I wanted to do was just, and I'm going to share my screen again. I'll keep sharing it and going off. Um, is just walk you through the sales process, right? Or what broadly the sales process that I think a lot of enterprise companies will follow. And again, the definition of enterprise is usually you're charging more than $10,000 a year, right? $100,000 could be a million also. In the beginning, if you're selling to SMBs, you could be at even $200 a month, $500 a month, following the same process. But eventually, the cost of acquiring the customer through the sales process, right, which is very heavy, um, doesn't work. But in the beginning, you'll do the same process that I'm going to outlay, right? And the process is there's a top of the funnel, right? And the top of the funnel could be coming through anything. It could be either warm intros, it could be your cold outbound, right? Or it could be inbound because people know who you are, right? That's your top of the funnel. And the first step that you do post that is qualification, right? Qualification of whether there should be interest. Are you going to meet their need? It's very quick. It can happen through email or it can happen through the first call, which is your first call is usually a phone call, and you're not going to do a Zoom call. It's going to be a phone call. You can keep it tight to 15 minutes. And if you're doing the qualification over a phone call, it also becomes your discovery call, right? And what you want to accomplish in the discovery call is there are a bunch of pain points that the sorry, I'm just trying to let people in. There are a bunch of pain points that you're addressing, right? It's an enterprise company. you understand the domain really well, and there are specific pain points that you're trying to solve for. So you go through those pain points in the discovery call and understand if they resonate with them or not. Early on, you probably have more than a few pain points, right? You could be doing three different products, and that's completely fine. It's important to understand which of those apply to them. You don't want to talk about all in your demo, right? And so here, the aim is to get a good understanding from them, which of those pain points resonate from a solution perspective. You don't have to go to the solution in the discovery call, right? You're just going to give them enough confidence that you're solving it and broadly talk about a bucket of or a framework of how you're solving it. That's the aim of the discovery call. The aim of the discovery call, the outcome that you want from a discovery call is to get a demo set up, right? That's all. The moment you have the demo set up, you open up your calendars, you figure out the time that works, and you move on. You're not trying to oversell in this discovery call. And so you come to the demo, right? And the demo will either be the same individual who, um, this will be the same individual who was on the call, or they might be multiple people along with this person. They might bring in, if they're the champion, they might bring in either the buyer or they might bring in other stakeholders onto the demo call, right? Um, and that's where your first sales deck comes in. I'll walk you through at least what are the components in my mind of a good sales deck in a second. And so that's your demo. And then, you're going to end up in some form of procurement process, right? Depending on how big the the product is. Devanka, no, I'm not sharing anything right now. I will share later. Um, Depending on how big the company is and how big a sales process is, procurement will get involved or not. There's nothing wrong with procurement getting involved, right? If you're going to sell a product in these conversations, one thing you can do and you should do is figure out a few questions. So I'm going to give you a few questions that are very helpful, right? One is, has a company of my size ever sold to you? Right? Doesn't have to be in the first call. It can be in some of the conversations that you're having with them, right? Has a company of my size, like, what are the requirements for someone selling to you at this price point, right? Or the range of price point. I need SOC 2? Right? Do I need to have a US incorporation, for example, right? There are a bunch of questions. You just want to get a broad understanding from them, what it takes to sell. And if a company like if you're the first company of, like, let's say, five people with 200K revenue or 50K revenue selling to them, they might just tell you, hey, this is not my cup of tea. We don't buy someone that early. You're better off knowing that now, because then you can go back to them 3 to 6 months later. If you don't ask that question, you're likely to spend 6 months with them, and then they might convert, but you could have also found them 6 months later and converted them in a month, right? It's a function of spending your time wisely. And so understanding their buying process is very important. And then, on procurement, they might come and say, hey, my signing power for the check is $25,000. I can sign $25,000 without asking anyone. $9,000, $12,000, I can do without, just on my credit card, right? Important to understand, because one thing you can do is land and expand, right? You can, if your product is, you can give something that is cheap enough, get in under procurement, do something for 3 months, 6 months, where now you've created value. A lot of people inside are talking about it. It's not hypothetical, right? They're getting value, and then you move on, right? And then you can do a bigger process. There is no way, if procurement gets involved at 100K or 250K, you cannot not do it. There is just no way you're going to get around it, but you can manage how quick the process is. If there's a champion, if there's a bunch of people who are using it and they want it, they will fight for you. That's probably the most important thing to understand from this perspective. Okay. The next thing that I'll talk about is, a lot of people start from product and then they move up to distribution, right? In an enterprise format. My view is that in enterprise, the founders should start with ROI, right? when you're selling to an enterprise, there are three reasons why an enterprise is buying from you, right? They're doing cost cutting, so there's saving of some time, some aspect happening. It doesn't have to be people being fired. It could be that they're growing so fast that they don't have to hire new people. That's still cost saving, right? The second is incremental revenue, and the third is insurance, right? Especially in cyber, many times companies will buy a product for insurance. To think about the rule of thumb of pricing in all of those, if you're doing cost savings, you should be at 10%, 20% of the ROI. So if you're saving them $100,000, you can come in at 10,000 or maybe 20,000. That makes it a no-brainer, right? If you are pricing yourself higher than that, then a lot of the ROI questions come into place. Understanding the ROI also is very helpful because it tells you who the buyer is, who's going to sign the check, and how are they internally going to position the value of the product. So that's the ROI in cost saving. If you're doing incremental revenue, you can charge 30%, even 33%. People will, because they can easily attribute new revenue coming in to your product. If they can do that, they will give you 30%, 33%. I've even seen people in the first year giving 50% to a new for a new product, right? Incremental revenue is always valued more. And if you're looking at insurance, you're probably going to get 5% of the ROI,
Right. Right.
right? So that's basically broadly the ROI. Any questions so far?
Add to chat
Anyone
too. While he's speaking, others speaking, and we can get to it.
sorry?
Like you can add to the chat as well. Well,
Yeah.
we can get to those.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, just put them in chat or just, like feel free to just get on screen or whatever and ask, right? The second last thing I'll say here is um, you want to set up KPIs for your sales process, right? The two KPIs that I believe work for most companies are one, either for the pre-sales, and there's different KPIs for pre-sales and different KPIs for post-sales. My favorite KPI for pre-sales is demos per week. It's a KPI, and so let me explain why that is my favorite KPI, right? You want a KPI that is in your control, but it is not a vanity metric, right? An example of a vanity metric is sending out 500 emails a week or 100 calls a week, right? They're in your control, so it adheres to at least one part of what you should think about, right? But it is a vanity metric because the outcome is not guaranteed, right? All 500 emails could end up going into spam folder, right? No one could pick up. It's not something that gives you some value out of it, right? You want some friction in there. And so a demo call means that you've done a call with them and they've agreed to coming on the demo, right? Which means that you have to optimize for your outbound strategy. You're getting enough people who are interested, and hence they're falling into your demo process. And hence demos per week for me is a good one. And you don't have to have a crazy number, right? You can say I'm going to do 2 a week. Eventually you want to get to a hockey stick, right? Or some form of a stick going up. So if you've been doing this for 3 months and you realize that you're getting like one demo a week, but that is not enough for you at the price point you are to make it work, it's a good indicator that you need to go back and either change your outbound strategy, your inbound strategy, or you're not positioning your product well, right? Or you're not reaching the right product. And so it's a very good process for you to figure out, maybe even do a pivot, right? So that's why it is. And the reason I don't like contract signed is because that's not in your control. The procurement process could take much longer. It could be a 2 week process. It could be a 6 week process. It could be 3 month process, right? So you can't stage every week getting a contract signed. But demos per week is enough friction, but not crazy friction, right? And a lot of your upper top of the funnel processes get solved. So that's one. In a In post sales, my the KPI that I recommend for most people is time to ROI proof, right? It's not a KPI that you hear about a lot, right? It's time to ROI proof. Let me explain what that is, right? It is for a given cohort, and in the beginning, you can have a cohort which is 1 week long or a month long, right? Doesn't matter. How long does it take for them to say, yes, over email, we have saved 15 hours using your product, right? You're committed to saving 25 hours, we actually save 50 hours, right? It is the amount of time it takes for them not to build a case study, right? Because a case study requires you going through legal, it requires people liking the design, the formatting, all of that stuff comes into play, right? You may or may not be allowed to write their name on it. But time to ROI proof is something that is in your control because you've set them up, right, in the pre-sales process to which how you will measure their ROI, right? Is it hours saved? Is it efficiency of process? Is it bugs solved? Whatever it is, right? And if you're able to do that, you will be able to figure out what is the ROI, uh, and then you can basically figure out the time to ROI proof. There's a lot of questions coming on this. Should I just wait and answer some of these questions? Let me see. Okay. Okay, that's a broader question, Lakshman. I will come back to that later. Why are save? Okay, that's basically a challenge question on why are ROI saving so low. I think I'll address that in questions. Okay, so these are the two KPIs that I care about that I think are probably the most helpful. If there are no questions on this, I'm going to do one last thing on qualification, right? The qualifying who you're spending with and how much time you're going to spend with them is probably one of the most important things you do, right? Disqualifying a customer is as important as qualifying a customer that you're going to talk to, right? The framework I use for early stage startups is um, what I call the light bulb moment, right? So the moment you go and pitch to a customer, you will have something which is they look at your problem that you're solving, they'll hear your solution, and they'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? It's what I call the light bulb moment. They hear about the solution for the first time, they get very excited, and they're like, this is amazing, I can't believe someone is even able to solve this problem, right? Remember, you're coming with domain expertise, so you understand the problems in that space, right? So when you lay out a solution, you'll have the first person, some people would say it's what I would call the light bulb moment, right? Second are people who will say, yeah, we've thought about it, but we've actually never done anything about it, right? Because it hasn't been a priority for us. It's not something we thought was solvable. It's not something that we could justify spending time, right? And the third category will be people who will be like, not only is this a problem that we've thought about, it's actually a solution that we've tried solving. We've put an intern on it. We bought a competitor's product. We tried building something internally, right? They could have done anything, right, to solve the problem. If they've tried solving the problem, right, and you come up with a better product, a faster product, a cheaper product, in my mind, the last customer is your best customer to go after. And the reason is that they have already built the ROI case internally by having people go after it, spend time on it, especially as you go higher and higher on the price point. This becomes even more important because if you are going to someone, and I think the customer that you want to delay, at least in the beginning, is the customer who has a light bulb moment. It's very contra-intuitive. And the reason you want to delay the person who has a light bulb moment is because they have to follow the entire process internally in order to buy your product. Any decent size product is going to take them 6 months to 9 months, right? Because they have to go build enough credibility in the organization that it is needed, tell people that can be solved, get people along, say we're going to commit resources to it or capital to it, which is money, right? And then do this. If you start getting involved with them at that very early process, what's going to happen is it will take you 3 to 6 months just to get them to the point where they're willing to buy, right? And that amount of time, early stage startups rarely have. Now, if you are this is the exact opposite of if you're selling $1 million contract and you're established, then you actually want to get involved with them that early because for $1 million contract, there will be an RFP, right? There will be a RFQ process that they will follow. You can help them write things in the contract that you know you're going to easily kill. And so at a higher price point, you want to find people that early because you can guide them on what should be in the contract, should be in the RFP, right? Because you know you're going to win. But otherwise, for early stage startups, you don't want to do it. So that's the last thing on the qualification. Let me look at my deck to see if I've covered everything. We can take a break for a second. Any other questions, please let me know. Okay. Okay, I'm going to, 1 second. Is it the same as time to value? Oh, I think the KK, Mukhi, you're talking about time to ROI proof, right? Is that what you're asking for? I'm assuming.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, it's the same thing, time to value, right? Time to ROI proof
Right.
means the same thing, right? Like, hey, it took me, and so let me elaborate on this, right? Time to ROI proof, let's say for your first cohort could be 90 days, right? And then the second cohort is also 90 days, right? Eventually you realize that it's taking too long, or maybe that is the right time, right? But then someone in the engineering team comes up and says, hey, I can automate the onboarding process, or I can run a process where all of the data from Google Drive gets copied into our system because they need that in order to build it. And these guys are doing it now on the 45th day. And hence it takes
Mm.
90 days, right? If you start working towards that, you will be able to bring the ROI proof down further. I don't know. I'm talking hypothetical right now, but
Sure,
if
sure.
there's KPI, right, in your sales process, then everyone is geared towards making it shorter.
Mm.
The reason you want this is because the one thing that works, right, without fail is case studies. The more case studies you have, the more happy customers you have, the easier it is to sell. Early stage startups, the one thing that you want to do is create more case studies. There is
Got
like
it.
nothing that helps you more than case studies. You can be as good looking a person, and that will help you a bit, but nothing helps you more than case studies, right? And that is your job, right? Keep creating as many case studies as you can. And so time to ROI proof basically helps you get there faster.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I see some other questions. I will come back to them as we do the question session. Okay. So I talked about this. Oh, now I'm going to do, it's not sharing. I'm going to walk you through what I believe is the um, is a sales deck format that I like. So I'm going to give you at least the names of the slides. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Many times I even go down to um, 9 slides. It is never 20 slides, and some of these slides are not going to be relevant to you. So you'll basically go down. Again, your first slide is just who you are. It can also be on the first slide or it can have its own slide. It's a preference thing. But in a paragraph, you're covering who you are, right? And remember, it has to be something for your ICP, right? Like it has to be very clear to the ICP that this is what they're getting. You could also have multiple sales decks for different ICPs, and that is completely fine. But the more tailored you are to them, the more likely early on for them to buy. Let's say you're selling to brands, you're selling to retail, right? They know their needs are different, right? Walmart's needs are very different from Pepsi's needs, right? Put one for retail, put one for brands, put one for OEM manufacturers. If you're selling to all three, that's fine. But create the illusion that this product is for their specific needs. It's very important to do that. Um, Again, credibility is the team, right? Usually, but it also could be that, hey, we've been working on this with 25 brands. Usually early on, it is the team. hey, I've spent the last decade thinking about this. This is who we are, right? And this matters more and more when it is very early on in the process, right? I have published papers on it. Why does it matter? Because they are buying from you. They know you are on the hook, right? If it's a no-name team, they don't know who to go after if something doesn't work. There's a reason, right? The old saying that no one got fired for hiring McKinsey, right? The reason, right? Because people trust McKinsey. Here, you, by putting your name out there, are giving them the trust that I am the person who will deliver for you. And hence, that's very important, right? And then obviously, you want to start with problem or pain point. Most common is for you to have done the call and then you come to the pain point section. And here you want to put in, here is what we discovered in the discovery call. Here is what we learned in the discovery call. So you're not shooting at in the dark, right? And you can also divide this into two sections if you want, right? These are the three main pain points that we talked about in the discovery call, right? And then you can have another section, and it could be in the appendix, depending on how long it's taking you to go to them, or it could be right after. Here are other pain points that we address, right? That's another way of bringing it in. But it may not make it there, it may make it into the appendix. And then you come to your solution. You want to separate out the pain point and the solution. Because when you're doing a sales deck, you want to bring people in. If you mix both the problem and the solution, right, then the moment you talk about solution, they're thinking about the solution. But your solution, as please early on, may not be necessarily the solution that they want. But if you've agreed on the problem and they've agreed on the problem, then you can basically twist the solution to make it work. If this is something that you're doing even early on in the process, which is when you're doing discovery calls to figure out what the right solution is, then you just write your hypothesis on, hey, this is how we believe the problem will get solved. Does that resonate with you? Right? So early stage, when you have a product, but you still are not selling really, you're finding design customers, you can call it a hypothesis. After you've started selling, you move into, hey, here is my solution. But only for those pain points. You may have three other products, but you don't want to go to all of them. Because the more you try and sell, the more difficult it is. The more business units get involved. Um, this is a slide I loved. How is it solved today by the company? If they're doing something, they may have either a competitor in place, they may be doing it using Excel sheets, they may be doing it manually, they may be doing Slack. It doesn't matter. Tell them this is what I've learned, right? And the reason why that matters is because they will tell you, hey, no. And as the group gets bigger and bigger, someone else from engineering may show up and say, you know what, I actually built this myself. We've already built this product. You want to figure out all the challenges that are coming to selling now versus 3 months later, right? So if someone stands up and says, yeah, but this is something that we have a data science team, we can build it. Your champion at that time is going to stand up and say, hey, dude, sure, but you've been saying that for the last 6 months, and I need this tomorrow, not 6 months later, right? You want to be able to give your champion the ability to respond to that so that it gets nipped in the bud. Then you talk about, again, if there are buckets of solutions, you may do that, you may not do that. Otherwise, um, you could have a roadmap if you are doing a bunch of things, especially as you've had multiple conversations. You could have a roadmap and say, hey, because for a lot of times they will want A, B, and C, right, in the pain points, and you're only solving for A. If you're only solving for A, you could tell them that B and C are coming in the roadmap at this time. That's when it is helpful. Next is case studies. That is something that I am. I'm sorry, solution. I heard it twice. Next is case studies, right? It is the way you're going to win. Again, as you get further and further into the process, it's possible that you go through these first four slides very quickly in a meeting, right? Because almost everyone's brought in, but you have two new people. So you'd be like, hey, I can spend more time with you walking you through the whole process, but I'm going to quickly go through what we know is a pain point, how it's being solved, and go straight to the case study. Because nothing sells more like the case study. I know I have a problem, someone else has a problem, they're vouching for this solution, right? They've been using it for a few months. Then you do a demo, right? Videos people do and they work. videos are fine to sign along, but like if you're on a real call with a customer and you cannot do a demo, that is usually a bad sign, right? You want to be able to do a demo, but you can make the demo the best demo possible. You can have data preceded, you can have their data into the org, right? Like you can do all of that stuff to make the demo. Don't start from scratch. Start from the point where the demo makes sense. And then if you need, you come back with product screenshots, right? If you don't have a demo, you can do product screenshots. And the last thing I will say is you always want to have next steps. You have to make sure you manage the time well and you keep 5-10 minutes for next steps. Because if you don't get to next steps, you probably have lost the meeting, right? So that's uh, the slides I talk about. Let me see. I'm going to check and see. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Can we get yes, you can get this deck for reference. I'm going to even share the video, so you'll get it from there also. And the recording, yes, you'll get the recording also. Okay. Any other questions? I am going to go through this. I'm going to share the submitted questions. But let me just. Okay, we'll also add the question that we got here in the chat. But here are the sub question that was submitted as part of this. I'll see which ones make sense to answer. Some may not, and then we'll skip them. What's the sales process from India? Can we start from India? The answer is yes. I mean, the process for selling an enterprise startup within India or to the US is pretty much the same. I think the level of communication, the crispness of the communication, right? The expectation in enterprise in the US is higher, I would say. So that's something you probably have to be aware of. Process does not change. Can we sell sitting from India? It depends on the price point. If you're selling a $200 a month product, yes. If you're selling a $100,000 a year product, probably no. Because at that price point, they will want to know who you are, and they will also want to make sure that you can deliver on the promise, right? And so, but you don't have to live here at that time, right? You can move here or you can come here and do meetings over a month and go back. But at some point of time, early enough, the founder probably has to move here if you want to make this a real business, because you will be just doing continuous calls. You can do that from India, but it is very difficult to manage doing everything from India, right? Beginning is fine, maybe for the first few months as you have the first 5-10 customers. But if it's a real business here, I have not seen anyone succeeding, you know? Now you can say, hey, I'll hire a sales guy in the US. You can do it, but you need real money for it. Because a sales guy, like even at the cheaper end, will probably charge you 50, 60K. Real good one will probably charge you 150K base, right? 100K base. So you're talking about 60, 80K. And then they're not going to be great in the first 3 months, 6 months, right? So there's a lot of sunk cost. Plus, it depends on how you're selling. They're going to be flying a lot, right? And a lot of those will be duds. They'll be going to conferences, right? You're talking about a good 150K, 200K all in expense. And it may or may not play out. And this is why almost everyone says that you want the founders to be here. And I'm a believer that if the founder is here, you will get a higher chance of succeeding. See, I'm pretty sure this is controversial, so there might be some questions. Why I can't see the chat here. One second. Okay, now I can see the chat. Okay, yeah, there's the chat. Okay, I see these are. I'll try and address those questions. Okay. The second is basically how do we sell in the US without moving? Is there a working playbook for this? The playbook is you have to have a US number. I can tell you what the basic requirements are. You have to have a US number, right? You have to work US hours. Um, you want to make sure people uh, believe you're like a credible US company, right? No one usually will want to buy, again on the price point, will want to buy from a company like from an Indian company that they believe requires US presence, right? So it works, but it requires a lot of effort, right? The bare minimum I can tell you, but I don't know if it's like you may need a lot more than that, right? Again, you cannot substitute anything to flying here and spending time with your customers. Is cold calling okay after cold emailing from India? If yes, how to get the relevant phone numbers? It depends on the sector you're going after. In India, for example, I know cold calling works like a charm, right? In the US, outbound is mostly a function of two things. It's email and LinkedIn. It is not, in most industries, it is not okay to start calling people. You can do it, but in real estate, for example, it's completely fine. If you're doing something in prop tech, people in real estate are on their phone all the time. So it's completely okay, right? But if you're selling something in cybersecurity and you think you can call the CISO and expect them to pick up the call and respect you, chances are you're not doing yourself a favor. Also, remember, if you're cold calling, you better have your message crisp. Within 10, 15 seconds, you want to be able to communicate who you are and why you're calling, right? Otherwise, you've definitely lost the customer. So it works in specific sectors, um, but your best bet is using email and LinkedIn. What's the right time and medium to call them from India? I mean, medium is get maybe Google Fiber is probably better, right? You cannot do a WhatsApp call, right? No one here is on WhatsApp. You have to call a regular number. The right time is during the daytime, which means it's like late at night for you, you know? Um, how to build credibility with enterprise buyers. You build credibility through case studies. You build credibility because you understand their pain point and you can demonstrate that you've solved it. You know, when you communicate to them in outbound cold, you should be able to communicate very clearly what is the problem you're solving, right? Tips on landing the first 10 customers. I think we've gone through that in detail here. How do you move from being a product-led company to a sales-led company when expanding to a new market? Product company is PLG is very different from sales-led companies, right? I mean, like they're just very different. PLG works great, for example, if you're a DevOps tool, right? It works really well, obviously, if you're a consumer company. But an enterprise, if you're not selling to developers and you're selling to anyone else, chances are you will have to be a sales-led company, right? You can just do a you can't expect to be a product level. At least you will not get the number of reps that you need in terms of sales if you're doing just PLG. So I think you have to start. But the sales is usually the founder. Till the first million, you want the founder to be doing sales because the founder understands the pain point that the customer has, right? I just realized it's 10:47. We have like 13 minutes left. I'm going to run through this because I do want to get through a few sales decks. How to build a working, scalable top of the funnel. Um, till we get there the next one. I mean, it's essentially figuring out who your ICP is, right? And you can use tools like Apollo, Clay to get their email addresses. You can use a drip campaign that you can use in either Lemlist, Dripify, or La Growth Machine to send them messages, right? Obviously, the key here is being able to very clearly articulate the problem and why you're the best people to solve it. And then you can basically start reaching out to them. You should actually do a lot of this outreach before moving here because it'll tell you if what resonates or not. You move here, you're driving up and down in the valley or in New York. You're not just randomly going to meet people, right? You want to know that the problem is you're solving is working, and that is usually through outbound, right? Or conferences. Conferences are amazing if you can go there because you can just meet people. So if there are conferences in the US, 100% fly for them. Um, okay, they're all very similar. Channels of outreach. I mean, channels of outreach are essentially um, email, LinkedIn, conferences. That's your three main channels of outreach, reaching people. You can do phone calls in specific places, but it doesn't always work, you know? Um, okay, so I think we've covered this. I'm going to go through some of the sales decks now so that we at least cover those and we can um, pick these up after if we need to. Okay, so let's start with Agent Cube. Shivam, can we get them on?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Let's do Purple Hunt because I see Devakar is here.
Yeah, perfect.
So stop hackers before they strike. I have some notes I've taken, you know. Uh, so I like the first slide, right? Because you're very clear, hey, we're stopping hackers before they strike. You're communicating to me, at least I have a very clear idea of where you're going, right? Um, and if it is for me or not. You talk about continuously testing the organization like a hacker, it makes sense. This slide is great. Uh, it talks about credibility. You have the team slide, right? Built by cybersecurity veterans who've done it before. The two of you are there. Big fan of this. You could even have like bullet points instead of all of it being one line, and talk about like broadly what you've done. But I think logos, everything is great. You know. So here is the thing, right? Like I see on the left-hand side, you have the problem side, right? And then on the right-hand side, it looks to me like, sorry, it looks to me like the solution, but I'm not sure if those are risks, there are problems, like what that image is doing on the right, right? Um, and it's not clear to me, like, is budget a problem, right? Because a pain point is different than a budget, right? Like, if it's a risk or if it's like its capability a problem, right? And so I think you're mixing a few things here. And I think you're better off saying, like, here are the problems that I'm going after, right? So if you're saying testing is slow and manual, then give me some numbers. Like, what is slow, right? Like, why does it
Got it.
matter to me that testing is slow? What is the implication of that? So you don't have that here, right? And what are the consequences of that? So go into like, hey, because they may not always care about the problem in the same way that you're caring about, you know? And so you want to use this process with not just vague pain points, but a clear, here is a pain point and here is the outcome of that pain point. Okay. So that's my critique on this slide. So now this is your uh, solution slide, right? This is where I start realizing you're basically doing pen testing, right? But like
That's right.
if you're doing pen testing, then bring it up on the first slide, right? There are people in your space who understand what pen testing is or don't, right? Then just tell me, hey, I'm the best pen tester out there, right? Because then you're qualifying yourself towards people. You see, either you're building the deck towards people who don't even understand what pen testing is, and you want to guide them towards why pen testing is important and the whole shebang, right? Then you don't need to write what pen testing is. You're just writing the problem and why pen testing is the best thing and best next thing to sliced bread, right? If that is your ICP, I don't know how big that ICP is, but if you're going after real cybersecurity people, they all know what pen testing is, right? So then you don't want to talk about continuous like AI powered risk detection. You want to say, I'm the best pen tester out there, right? And I'm leveraging AI to do pen testing, right? Um, So that only I figured out on the fourth slide, right? And then I think if you're just talking, if you just decide that you're going after pen testing, then you want to talk to me about like why are you unique in pen testing versus everyone else? It goes away from even the pain point is no more like a regular pain point. The pain point is like what happens with today's pen testing, right? You can go more niche. Your pain point in the last slide is very broad. It is towards someone who's never done pen testing before. You can go straight to hey, here are the problems with today's pen testing, and then come to what is why is your solution the best solution? Diwakar, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Um, this is a very dense slide, and like I don't know what value it adds, right? Like I think you have this, you talk about see like a hacker, act like a hacker, right? But I think it's a great logo, right? See like a hacker, act like a hacker, right? Then the question is, are you going up? Pen testing is done across a variety of needs, right? It's not just from a hacking perspective, right? So then
Sure.
if you're more niche, right, then you can even go further. And it is great to be niche. You can say, I am doing pen testing to prevent hacking of your site, right? So then that becomes your logo, not just broadly, I'm the best pen tester in town. I am only going after the sliver that is pen testing that prevents hacking, right? Because you don't want 1 million customers in your first year. You want 10,
Got it.
100,
Makes sense.
right? And so, like, you see how, like, as I'm going down, I'm discovering more and more things about your sales deck. But the aim is still figure out your FN ICP and go very deep into it and build a sales deck only for that ICP. Right. So now I've narrowed it ICP down to pen testing for hacking prevention. Right. This is just a throwaway slide. This is not a solution slide. Like this is like maybe it's a slide for a VC, but even a VC will like just look at it and say, the only thing going for it is it's pretty, right?
You can skip
It's
the
designed.
next couple of months as well.
Yeah. Okay. This is a great slide of what you should not have in a sales deck, right? Your sales deck does not care about market size. Customer who's, remember there are two different kinds of decks. There is a sales deck that you will present in a meeting, and that is what I had basically laid out. There is a sales deck which has a lot fewer words because you are doing the voiceover. There is a sales deck that is basically the same structure, which has slightly more content because you will send that after your demo email, and that can be
Absolutely,
circulated
Padma.
internally, right? And
I
then the
will
third
request you
one,
to skip the
sorry.
next 3, 4 slides because
Yeah,
the
but
investor
it's okay. I'm
slides are
trying to make
also
a
coming
point.
into
I'm trying to
this.
make a point. Divakar, you signed
Yeah,
up for it. So I'm trying to make a point for everyone else here also, right? So
absolutely.
enjoy the journey. So you have the two sales decks, right? Then you have the third deck, which is an investor deck. This is a great slide for the investor deck, but you never want to talk about why it's a big market. They don't care, right? And so I agree. So like this is it's a fine slide. I think you don't need a lot of these slides on like why you're there.
And the last 3, 4 are more investor oriented decks
Yes,
and
exactly,
slides.
right? But you cannot have them in a sales deck. I'm trying to make the point here. You cannot have them in a sales deck. Your customer does not want to see them. It's a waste of their time. What you don't have is next steps, right? I think this is good, validated by early customers, but I want a case study, right? So I'm going to stop it here. Um, is Shivam, is Agent Cube here?
Yeah,
No,
I'm here.
oh, you are.
Okay, could you come on screen?
Different last name on. Okay.
Okay, this is you guys, right? Agent Cube?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Um, I like the design a lot. Um, the I wasn't some things were not clear to me, so I'm going to ask you a few questions also, right? But let's just start with this.
We're close to time. Should we go over if whoever's able to stay and
Yeah, I mean, I think people will drop on their own if they need to, you know.
yeah.
But okay, I do want to cover this because people have spent the time sending the sales deck, so I will cover it. Actually, let me just stop sharing and like let's do like a few housekeeping things. Okay, so for those of you here, right? A few things. I'm happy to do more sessions. One of the things that I am signing up for is I want to help some India-based startup get to, like, my KPI is get to, let's say, $1 million in revenue. And if you're already high up there, to take you to 10 million, right? So I'm setting myself up to work with some of the India-based companies, or you could be US-based Indian diaspora also. So if you're if you have some customers, right, reach out to me or I'll send a poll out and we can figure out a way for me to connect more. I'm already working with Shiva and a few others, and I'm happy to figure out a way to help, right? And for the next 3 months, my aim is just to start helping the India US corridor. And so, like, I don't need anything. So let's be very clear about that, right? So that's one. Um, I'll send my email out in the in the poll that we send out. So that's one. Shivam, anything else?
We can send the polls, right? The decks, the recordings all after this. So yeah, don't worry if you leave early.
Yeah, if you need to leave, we're at time, and if there's interest, I can set up another set of calls for the sales deck, as well as, my aim is to create a WhatsApp group where people can ask a lot of these questions and, I can answer, or within the group, people will answer. And so if there's interest, we can talk about that in the poll and we can add you to the WhatsApp group also. Okay, I will go back. Okay. So back to Agent Cube, right? Siddhant, if you want to come on, feel free to do that, right? Okay, so I the left, like, which I think a screenshot from your product line is too dense. It's very difficult for me to understand what is going on here between 2, 23, 46, and 18, right? And so I don't know what value it accomplishes other than that you have a working product, right? And you can get me to believe that in many different ways. So you need to be thoughtful about why you're taking up that much space, because my eye goes to that versus AI-powered Kubernetes IDE, right? Siddharth, if you're on, could you just tell me what exactly does the product do?
So we are like a Kubernetes management platform. We manage Kubernetes clusters and all. Plus, we have like all the cloud native integration built into the Kubernetes ID. So, but what you see in Kubernetes ecosystem is quite larger. So there are a lot of tools to manage itself. So what we do is like build all those integration together into one single ID, one control plane, and we use AI and all those stuff to manage those stuff. So in short term, you can say like it's a cursor for Kubernetes.
Okay, I like that more because it helps understand what you're doing. But I didn't get that from the first slide or the second slide, right? Because your second slide talks about how AI in production is risky, right? And so there's a lot of things going on. So the left-hand side, I don't know how it helps me because I can't read that much, right? But you start with AI in production is risky, but not necessarily that your Kubernetes management IDE, right? And then you go to it's a controlled intelligence layer. So there's basically problem solution, but then you take me away towards AI in production is risky, and AI in production in the AI world has so many connotations, right? There's prompt attacks happening, there's my data going away, right? Anyone who's basically working in corporate with AI is thinking about like 25 different problems. I am still not clear on the second slide where you play. Actually, I started knowing what you're doing, and then I got confused. Right, just giving you my perspective. Um, then you come to Kubernetes operations are noisy, reactive, and so now you're talking about, hey, here are the problems with Kubernetes management, right? So again, slide 2 not very helpful. Here I start understanding, right, what you're doing. I think it's just too dense a slide, but it works, right? Because I understand, at least from this slide, that hey, it's they're noisy, reactive, and disconnected. Now, here's my question, right? How are they noisy? So you have here an AI noise, but what does it mean, right? You talk about is generic tools, right?
So noisy instance, you mean like too many alerts and all those stuff, logs you have to go through and all those noise, you can say.
Love it. That is what should be here on the slide on under AI, under noise, right? Because that explanation is very simple. I get it. But I would also have some numbers here, right? There are 25,000 alerts coming in a year, like some or 50 alerts coming in a week. What is like, help me understand what you mean by noisy, right? Right now, you're leaving it to my interpretation as to everything, right? Manual operation, I probably get AI noisy. I don't get reactive debugging also. Like, why does it matter, right? I mean, many people will come to you and say, hey, once we set up things in Kubernetes, right, it works. So help me understand, like that's the whole premise of Kubernetes, right? So help me understand why is there so much reactive debugging happening? Where is a problem happening? And I would even say that of these four, maybe the pain point that the orgist you're talking to, when you speak on the phone, is going to be one of these four. It's never going to be all four. Maybe it's two of these four, right? And you just want to talk about those. Like, hey, I remove the reactive debugging for you. And that is probably the most helpful thing you can do because then your deck will flow from there.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. To me right now, what's happening is there is too much going on, right? Like there are 5 things here on the left and 4 things here, right? You're talking about 9 parts of stuff for me to read. Like it's impossible. I will want to go through all of them. So that's basically my critique for your slides here, right? I like the idea again, and here I don't understand, right? Like why do you need to go from problem to evolution, right? Because that maybe the VCs care about it, but
I want like for people like using the other tool and what's the difference with current tool.
so if this is a comparison, right, then I would make it simpler to view, right? You can have a column with checkboxes and say, here is how people have tried solving it right now, right? But then make it very clear for me to understand that, or you can have a roadmap like slide that says we were here earlier. This version from like a time slide, not a roadmap, like a time slide, right? Like 5 years back, this is what Kubernetes was doing. Like this today, Kubernetes, or like till last year, Kubernetes solved these things, and now we're solving this. You can make it visual for me to understand that, hey, it's time elapsed, it's an evolution slide, but how you're solving for it right now, you know? Um, Again, I'm not sure the evolution slide comes here because you want to go straight from the problem to the solution, right? And this is your solution. Too many words, unclear to me, unless I read all of them, which no one is going to do. Like, how do you solve the problem that you listed? Right? This is not jumping out. So that's something you can probably make the slide more pithy.
Okay.
Um, this is a unique slide, right? Because you're saying here, you're basically advising them on how to pick a Kubernetes solution, right? And you're saying that, hey, we're better. Even if you're doing that, I don't necessarily know if I would ask questions. I would just say, um, how you differentiate from other competitors or something, right? And then have each of these questions as a check, like as a criteria, and then talk about agent cube and that you have a check mark against all of them, and then you can bucket competitors without naming them into a group and have fewer checkbox. That might be better because then I get very clearly that this is their differentiation slide and that you obviously are doing a lot more, and also become very clear to me why I should pick you. So I think the slide is fine. I would just view it slightly differently. I don't know if I need this slide at this point. Don't know if I need this slide at this point. Too verbose for sales decks. The demo was great. Like if you're sending it as a sales deck to be read, then I think the demo is fine. This is a feature list. Maybe it goes to the appendix. Again, appendix. The team you can have in the beginning, you can have here. I think it's entirely up to you. Case studies. If you have case studies and you're live with people, you want to add those. Okay. I'm going to show you one more slide from someone that we work with. I just want to talk about this, right? So I'm going to give him feedback. He's not here today, but they're a DevOps platform. So for me, the first problem here is they talk about AI SRE platform, right? It's not always clear. I mean, I understand it's a site reliability engineer, right? But you want to basically say I'm a DevOps platform here. So that's one. They go straight to debugging automated with like a chart very quickly getting to that versus this should be like the 10th slide maybe, right? Versus an overview of what problem they solve. So that's a critique of this slide. Without going to the problem, they're going to the demo. Then they come to core problem. And this is a great slide. Incidents still take hours to resolve, right? I think they have money here. I don't know if I would put money or time of different kinds of incidents, right? That's probably how I would solve for it. And then they go to who fails Spain, and I think not a big fan of this because you're trying to say there's like you need to involve like 10 different kinds of people into the sales process. It's not usually helpful. So that's like I'll go. I mean, I just want to show you like things also what not to do on this slide. Shivam, have we covered everyone, or is there anyone left?
In terms of the decks,
Yeah,
there was a one by.
are they here?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, we are here.
Let's go to one by. Yeah, one by the future of supply chain today. This is a vision statement. It works. But like if you told me what you're doing in supply chain, that would be more helpful, right? Hey, I'm reducing the time to X in supply chain. Like this is your one time for people to understand, and because future of supply chain could be many things, right? You want to talk about what you're solving. Again, investor deck, you can keep this. Sales deck, you want to be very more crisp.
Sure.
Real world problems. You list out the 3 problems, right? How do I save costs to become more competitive? How can I source and how do I liquidate my inventory? These are real wide problems. They have also been problems that have been in supply chain forever, right? And so they're not new problems, which is fine. So I don't like this here. You've gone from the problems to listing out names of products, right? Like one data, one source, one exchange. Like no one cares about the names of the products. I care about, hey, I'm solving it through a cost reduction platform, but I care more about like how are you solving it, right? And so this to me is not a slide I would add at this point. Like I want to know, hey, I'm solving your cost competitive problem by doing X, Y, and Z, right? And so I would write that versus listing the names of the products.
Okay.
So this is where you come to in the cost reduction platform, right? This is like a list of features, but I don't understand like what all is going on. Like how are you going to reduce the cost reduction, right? Like what is unique to you? How are you doing it? So great line, right? Reducing the cost of sourcing using advanced AI. But what is the unique? Like, if you can explain to me in a sentence, you should do that here, right? Like, or you saying, hey, I do it by creating supply chain maps. Fine. How does it help me reduce the costs? Unclear to me from each of these actually makes me ask more questions. So you should pick part of your solution and then elaborate on that, right? And this is your one day, like you can use the whole slide to talk about how you are able to reduce the cost. Again, I don't see any numbers here, right? So you want to also talk about, hey, we're reducing cost by 30%, 20%, 5%, 50%, some version of like what is the implication of using your product? So that's not there. You come to how we do this, but like it's still very vague. Proprietary databases, multiple data pipes across various pricing sources. I don't understand how you're doing it, So that's the thing where you have to become crisper on how you're getting me that reduction. Again, remember, when you talk to them, you will realize on the call, they don't care about all three. So your entire deck is going to be on maybe one of these three problems in the beginning, right? Because that will be the priority. Eventually, you will land and expand, and you'll give them one, and then the other, and the third. But so you have space because you're only talking about either one exchange, right? And how you do it, right? So that's what I would do. Like again, unclear how this solves a problem. Like PII isolation, like what is the implication? You do PII isolation, and then what does it result into? Is how I would understand, right? So that's just my sense.
Sure.
You don't have to have pricing, but if you have pricing, then you need to give me some numbers, right? Like there's no numbers here. So don't have to have pricing, but if you do, then you have to tell me how much it will cost me. Um, Team strength. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier, like I'm buying because of you, the individual. Like this on the left does not help me, right? Like I need to know who are the people, what is their background, be able to go check them on LinkedIn, their names, like everything that gives me the confidence of who you are, like very similar to the Purple Hunt slide. You want the names of the people, their photographs. Um, no one is buying other than the credibility that you have. So you need to lean into that. You have all of that written here, but you need the names.
Sure.
If you have names of advisors here, if it matters, I would put that, you know. Um, I don't know otherwise what this slide accomplishes unless you have case studies with them. Okay, that's all I have. Awesome. Any other questions that I did not address that people would like me to ask? If you do, like just come on stage or just ask me and then I can try and answer.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
So, for example, when we are doing cold calling to the US geography, and let's say, for example, my ICP is the procurement head or the let's say director procurement or a VP procurement. So, what's the best hook that you would advise? I would say at the start of a cold call, what's the best hook that we can stick on to and uh, probably considering the US clients. So, what should be the advice from your side?
I mean, I don't know your product to be able to give you the hook, right? Like it has to be something on either the pain point that they are facing or the solution that you have. Maybe when I create the WhatsApp group, you can get added to it and like we can talk in more detail. Like it's very difficult for me to give you that. I will say that procurement people are risk averse people, and the chances that they will pick up the call and talk to you is not that high usually. So I don't, maybe you've had experience with being able to do that, but you're better off emailing them and LinkedIn and then setting up time to get on a call. Cold calling works really well in India. I know this for a fact, right? People pick up the call and talk to you and and humor you. It's not something that works all the time. And so again, that's something you have to be thoughtful about.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. No, this is great. Yeah, we'll do those follow-ups, and I think the feedback was pretty good through, just on the messages. So, hopefully we run this every month or even, even more frequent.
Can I ask one question if you guys have time?
Sure.
So, like, what do you think, like, going out for a early stage startup, having its first 10 customers, should they come from network or investors connect, or should they come if someone is going for direct cold outreach? So they should go multi-channel via LinkedIn, emails, or conferences in US, like.
Your first customers are coming because they believe you can solve a problem for them, right? So you want to make it the easiest for you to get them, get your relatives, get your friends, get warm and throws through your investors. These are the best in the beginning, right? And obviously, they have to have credibility and create real case studies through them. That's where I would start. Um, what happens a lot of times is, well, after you've sold the product, you can ask them, hey, how should I sell to other people? What is the language I should use to sell to other people? And they will tell you. People like me in procurement would love this aspect of what you're saying. And so once you have the credibility with buyers, and I don't think it matters whether they are warm intros to your investors, through friends that you know, they can guide you on what the language should be when you're selling to other people. So that's what I would do. If you have the option, go through the least path of resistance.
Got it. Thanks a lot. And just one more query, like how do you think that UGC user generated content helps to get inbounds, or should someone do it in early stage or not? Like they should just focus on getting the outbounds, or they should also focus on generating content over different social media channels to get focus on inbounds also, like.
It depends a lot on the space you're in. It's a long investment, but it pays off really well if you can, let's say you're in cybersecurity and you become the known expert in cybersecurity, right? If you write a dedicated column, a Substack, do a video podcast, right? Anything, you will create the credibility and people will start following you because you're talking not just about your startup, but about the space in general, right? Um, I would do that, but you can't not expect like real revenue to start coming in or customers coming in for like 3, 6, 9 months or some time, depending on how soon your following starts. But if you keep doing it on a regular cadence, you will get the benefit. It's just not going to be a substitute for direct sales in the beginning.
Got it. Exactly, makes sense. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay. I think, Shivam, we're at um, awesome. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure, and we will connect again. Bye.
See you all.